6R450M disassembly. Applicable MSTs. Counter shaft DGBB pressing tool. Rear axle pinion outer bearing cone press dolly. Engine front cover guide Eagle 2. Flywheel pilot bearing installer Eagle 2. Applicable models. Pressing main dolly gears. Rear guide idler shaft front end. Removal tool diff taper roller bearing outer race. Input shaft RR bearing guide. Installer HSG linear bearing and bushes. Applicable models. Lock nut tightening dolly. Applicable models. Remover tool differ case side taper roller bearing. Applicable models. Tool rear housing holder. Tool removal shifting detent. Remover control housing lever roll pin. Transmission housing holding tool. Tool locking counter shaft. Applicable models. Tool removal 3rd 4th driven gear. Tool removal 3rd drive gear. Removal tool 3rd gear bush plate. Removal tool 3rd driven gear bearing. Holding tool output shaft. Tool output shaft lock nut removal. Removal legs OP shaft rear taper roller bearing. Tool front housing linear bearing removal. Mandrel transmission. Tool removal intermediate plate bearing. Tool shifter cover assembly linear bearing removal. Installer oil seal clutch housing. Installer OP shaft front inner race. Tool installation detent. Installer rear CA's CRB outer race. Installer OP shaft rear outer race. Installer OP shaft front inner race. Holding tool input shaft. Holding tool input shaft bearing. Tool pressing 5th 6th half. Holding tool counter shaft. Hold tool counter shaft lock nut. Installation tool 3rd gear bush. Locking tool rails end. Installer oil seal output shaft. Installer rail shaft oil seal. Drain the transmission oil. Remove transmission assembly from the vehicle. Using 14 mm open end spanner, detach shift lever decouple link at lever and balancer end. Remove decouple mass lever mounting bolt. Remove cable bracket mounting bolts. Install MST remover control housing lever roll pin on the shifter lever roller pin using 12 mm bolt and 13 mm nut. Insert 30 mm pin in tool bore and using 19 mm socket spanner, tighten the screw. Tighten the screw till tool pin move inward around 10 to 20 mm. Remove the tool pin. Insert 40 mm pin and remove the roller pin. Remove the tool. Remove shift lever and dust boot from shift rail shaft. Remove shift cover mounting bolts. Caution: using screwdriver, remove shift cover from housing. Remove O-ring from shift cover. Caution: position MST tool shifter cover assembly linear bearing removal on the shifter cover. Hold the tool using 15 mm open end spanner and tighten the top screw using 17 mm open end spanner. Hold the tool using 15 mm open end spanner and tighten the nut using 27 mm open end spanner. Remove the bearing. Remove H-gate mounting bolt and washer. Caution: rotate rail shaft to engage the shifter lever in neutral position. From outside, ensure all rails ends are in line. Using mallet, remove rail shaft from housing and take out from other side. Remove front retainer plate mounting bolts. Tighten full threaded bolts and pull out the retainer plate. Notice: remove front retainer plate oil seal by using screwdriver. Using flat snap ring plier, remove snap ring of input shaft and counter shaft. Using mallet, remove dust cap. Using 6 mm Allen socket spanner, loosen adapter Allen bolts. Remove the adapter from housing and remove the O-ring. Remove output shaft oil seal by using screwdriver. Remove idler shaft mounting bolt and washer. Caution: remove reverse switch mounting. Remove rear housing mounting bolts. Using mallet, hit starter motor mounting area, push ribs by screwdriver and remove front housing. Caution: remove the idler shaft from oil catcher. Remove the oil sump from idler shaft. Remove the washer, gear and needle roller bearing from idler shaft. Rotate the output shaft and position the shaft top hole and bottom hole 12 o'clock position should be matched on top lifting hook. Notice: caution. Position MST transmission housing holding tool and install the MST tool rear housing holder. Position the gear assembly with rear housing on MST to match holes of the output shaft on MST pins. Mount the MST Allen bolts on housing. Caution: rotate the gear assembly with housing and keep the housing assembly with tool on the workbench as shown in vertical direction. Remove intermediate plate mounting bolts. Notice: remove the gear assembly from the rear housing. Remove 4th gear synchronizer ring, needle roller bearing, and wave washer from rear housing. Remove 3rd, 4th gear synchronizer studs from rear housing. Rotate the housing, remove the tool mounting bolts and remove tool from the housing. Remove rear oil guide mounting bolts and remove guide. Remove 3rd, 4th all sump mounting bolts and remove all sump. Remove all catcher mounting bolts and remove catcher. Move 2nd gear fork and engage 2nd gear. Using roll pin tool, remove the roll pin of 1st, 2nd and reverse shift fork. Using mallet, remove gear shift rails. Remove rail from fork. Using 5 mm roll pin tool, remove the roll pin for 3rd and 4th shift fork, rotate the rail and take out. Using 5 mm roll pin tool, remove the roll pin for 5th and 6th shift fork and take out rail and fork. Position the MST tool locking counter shaft on bench vise, keep the gear assembly on MST and lock it. Using lock nut tightening dolly, rotate counter shaft and locking nut in clockwise and remove the nut. Notice: remove counter shaft Allen bolt. Disengage the synchronizer sleeve and disengage the gears. Remove the gear assembly from the mat and remove MST from bench vise. Position MST transmission housing holding tool and install the MST tool rear housing holder. Position MST transmission housing holding tool on the workbench as shown. Position the gear assembly on the tool. Notice: position the MST rear guide idler shaft front end on the counter shaft. Position the MST tool removal 3rd, 4th driven gear on 4th drive gear and position the SKF 160F to jaw puller on special tool. Remove CRB and 4th drive gear from counter shaft. Remove 3rd 4th hub locking snap ring by snap plier. Remove 3rd 4th synchronizer sleeve from input shaft. Before removing 3rd drive gear, check sleeve position is in center. Caution: using MST tool removal 3rd drive gear and SKF 160F to jaw puller, remove 3rd 4th synchro hub and 3rd drive gear. Take out 3rd 4th synchronizer hub, synchronizer ring, 3rd drive gear and 3rd gear NRB. Position the special tool on the counter shaft. Using MST tool removal 3rd 4th driven gear and SKF 160F to jaw puller, remove 3rd driven gear. Caution: position the MST rear guide idler shaft front end on the input shaft. Using MST removal tool 3rd gear bush plate and SKF 160F to jaw puller, remove 3rd gear bush. Notice: hold the gears and take out the intermediate plate. Using flat snap ring plier and MST tool removal intermediate plate bearing, expand the input shaft snap ring and simultaneously hit the input shaft bearing with hammer. The snap ring and bearing will come out. Notice: using flat snap ring plier and MST tool removal intermediate plate bearing, expand the counter shaft snap ring and simultaneously hit the counter shaft bearing with hammer. The snap ring and bearing will come out. Notice: position the counter shaft on MST transmission housing holding tool. Position the MST rear guide idler shaft front end on the counter shaft. Using SKF 160F to jaw puller, remove reverse driven gear. Caution: take out double groove ball bearing, collar bush, needle roller bearing and reverse driven gear from the counter shaft. Take out the reverse synchronizer ring from the counter shaft. Remove the reverse collar bush locking pin using magnetic stick. Remove the reverse synchronizer ring sleeve and stud from the counter shaft. Position counter shaft on MST rear guide idler shaft. Using SKF 160F to jaw puller, remove first driven gear. Caution: take out the reverse synchro ring hub. First driven gear from the shaft. Take out the driven gear needle roller bearing, synchronizer ring, sleeve, stud from the shaft. Position the MST rear guide idler shaft front end on the counter shaft. Using SKF 350F to jaw puller, remove second driven gear. Caution: take out the first driven gear bush, first second synchronizer hub, second driven synchronizer ring, second driven gear from the shaft. Take out the second driven gear needle roller bearing from the shaft. Rotate the counter shaft and using 5 mm punch, remove the second fifth spacer. Caution. Position the MST removal tool third driven gear on counter shaft. Position the MST rear guide idler shaft front end on the counter shaft. Using SKF 350F to jaw puller, remove intermediate counter shaft inner race. Caution. Remove counter shaft from the holding tool. Position the input shaft on MST transmission housing holding tool. Position the MST rear guide idler shaft front end on the input shaft. Using SKF 350F to jaw puller, remove intermediate input shaft inner raise and 6th drive gear. Caution. Take out the intermediate input shaft inner raise and 6th drive gear from the input shaft. Take out the 6th drive gear, needle roller bearing, 6th synchronizer ring, sleeve and stud from the shaft. Position the MST rear guide idler shaft front end on the input shaft. Using SKF 350F to jaw puller, remove 5th drive gear. Caution. Take out the 6th drive gear bush, 5th 6th synchronizer hub, synchro ring and 5th drive gear from the input shaft. Take out the 5th drive gear needle roller bearing from the input shaft. Rotate input shaft and position. Remove front input shaft double groove ball bearing circlip by using circlip plier. Take out double groove ball bearing from the shaft. Remove input shaft from special tool. Hold the gears, use mallet and remove output shaft from housing. Remove output shaft rear taper roller bearing. Rotate the rear housing from horizontal direction to vertical direction. Using SKF 60F to jaw puller, remove the output shaft front taper roller bearing outer race. Rotate the rear housing from one side to other side. Using MST, removal legs output shaft rear taper roller bearing, remove the output shaft rear taper roller bearing outer race. Using SKF 60F to jaw puller, remove the output shaft rear taper roller bearing outer race. Notice: rotate the rear housing from one side to other side. Remove rear counter shaft CRB retainer plate mounting bolts. Place the MST input shaft RR bearing guide on rear housing. Using SKF 60F to jaw puller, remove the rear counter shaft CRB outer race. Take out rear housing. Remove output shaft shim by using flat snap ring plier. Position the MST removal tool differ case side taper roller bearing on output shaft taper roller bearing. Using SKF 350F to jaw puller, remove output shaft front taper roller bearing. Remove Allen bolt of drain plug mounting. Remove Allen bolt of gear shift quality analysis plug mounting. Remove machining plug mounting Allen bolt. Rear housing sub-assembly child parts removal. Using screwdriver, remove all seal. Position the rear housing on the MST holding tool output shaft. Using MST tool output shaft lock nut removal. Remove the lock nut. Notice, remove the rear housing from bench vise and keep the housing on table in horizontal direction. Hold the gears, use mallet and remove output shaft from housing. Remove output shaft rear taper roller bearing. Rotate the rear housing from horizontal direction to vertical direction. Position the MST removal tool diff taper roller bearing outer raise on rear housing. Using SKF 60F to jaw puller, remove the output shaft front taper roller bearing outer raise. Rotate the rear housing from one side to other side. Using MST removal legs output shaft rear taper roller bearing, remove the output shaft rear taper roller bearing outer raise. Using SKF 60F to jaw puller, remove the output shaft rear taper roller bearing outer raise. Notice, rotate the rear housing from one side to other side. Remove rear counter shaft CRB retainer plate mounting bolts. Place the MST input shaft RR bearing guide on rear housing. Using SKF 60F to jaw puller, remove the rear counter shaft CRB outer raise. Take out rear housing. Remove output shaft shim by using flat snap ring plier. Position the MST removal tool differ case side taper roller bearing on output shaft taper roller bearing. Using SKF 350F to jaw puller, remove output shaft front taper roller bearing. Remove Allen bolt of drain plug mounting. Remove Allen bolt of gear shift quality analysis plug mounting. Remove machining plug mounting Allen bolt. Front housing sub-assembly child parts removal. Using screwdriver, remove select lever E-clip. Using roll pin tool, remove the select lever roll pin. Remove select lever from housing. Using a 5-inch extension rod, remove select lever collar bush from the transmission housing. Position a 8mm bolt on bush and using 10 and 5-inch extension rod, remove select lever plain bush from the transmission housing. Remove shift rail shaft oil seal by using screwdriver. Using tool front housing linear bearing removal and manual transmission, remove shift rail shaft linear roller bearing. Remove detent from front housing using mallet and MST's tool removal shifting detent and manual transmission. Remove breather from front housing. Remove Allen bolt of filler plug mounting. Remove GNS sensor by removing mounting bolt. Remove gear shift quality analysis plug mounting Allen bolt. Position the rail shaft on B block. Using roll pin punch and hammer, remove the neutral plate roll pin. Using roll pin punch and hammer, remove the detent block and interlock blade roll pin.